All right, welcome to the Young Turks. We got an insane show for you guys today. A million things to discuss. Yes, we have the legendary bow, how Donald Trump bowed like a dog to the Saudis. Kind of. Okay, well, at least that's what they said about Obama. You're gonna love that story. The SWAT heard around the world. Melania going, and knocking down Donald Trump's hand. That's coming up later in this show. Jeremy Corbyn. But there's only 2.5 weeks left. And here comes Corbyn. I'm gonna tell you about how much he's closed in on the polls. I made a prediction about that, which people found to be outlandish. I was accused of not knowing anything about British politics. I do declare. Jacob never had tea and crumpets in London. That's actually not true. I have literally had tea and crumpets in London. And apparently I do know a thing or two about the British electorate because it's a worldwide phenomenon. That's coming up later in the show. And so many things, it's flowing over. And yes, if you're wondering what this shirt is, I gotta show it to you. Stranger Times. How clever is that? Hello, shoptyt.com. I haven't said a word. I'm just wearing the t-shirt, that's all. All right, some quick fun ones on Trump's awesomely maniacal foreign trip abroad for you guys. We're gonna more on this in the next segment, but let's get to some of the controversies, okay? Let's start. Okay, now I hear from Donald Trump that not wearing a scarf in Saudi Arabia is so disrespectful. I know that because that's what he thought when the Obamas were in charge. So this is what he had tweeted at the time. He said, many people are saying it was wonderful that Mrs. Obama refused to wear a scarf in Saudi Arabia, but they were insulted. We have enough enemies. Now that was back in January 2015 when the Obamas were in charge and they had gone to Saudi Arabia. He found it outrageous that Michelle Obama wouldn't wear a headscarf. And by the way, we elected a guy who spells enough E-N-U-F. Now, I get it, it's Twitter. He's trying to consolidate his letters. But nonetheless, child should have never been allowed into the Oval Office. Anyways, so there's one thing we know about family members of Trump going to Saudi Arabia. They are gonna be covered up, man. They're gonna have scarves and etc. because they wanna be respectful. So let's show you Melania Trump, the first lady, as she enters Saudi Arabia. Oh no! No headscarf at all. They were insulted. Don't we have enough enemies? E-N-U-F, exclamation point, /sad/baby. Okay, this is outrageous. Well, I'm sure Ivanka, the first daughter, is going to be a lot more respectful, and she's of course in the White House, unlike the first lady, who apparently does not want to go to the White House for other reasons. Okay, so let's show you Ivanka. Outrage, don't we have enough enemies? My God, what are they doing here? This an outrage against the poor Saudis. Okay, my favorite tweet on this was from Nick Jack Pappas. He said, well, it looks like Melania is plagiarizing from Michelle Obama again. That's funny, Nick. That's funny. Okay, so are they guilty? Is this a major crime? Should we start chanting, lock them up? No, I don't care if they have headscarves or don't have headscarves. If you don't want to wear headscarves, great. I don't believe in headscarves culturally. It's not my thing, right? If you wanted to be respectful and wear it to Saudi Arabia, that's fine. I'm not gonna bust your chops over that. All I'm asking for is just a tiny bit of consistency. Hey, Trump voters, don't you get it, man? The guy has no moral compass, no attachment to truth, no concern about hypocrisy or irony, probably doesn't know what the word irony means. So all he wanted to do was attack Obama on everything. He had Obama derangement syndrome, as some of you did. Oh, I'm wearing scarves, I'm not wearing scarves, I hate him, blah, 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 blah. And then he gets into office, does the same exact thing. How many times is he gonna do the same exact thing as Obama and you're still gonna make excuses for him? At least we're consistent. Pardon to Melania Trump. Pardon to Ivanka Trump, and certainly a pardon to Michelle Obama for doing the same exact thing. But you conservatives, you live in a sweltering cauldron of hypocrisy. At least own it. Okay, or maybe cover your heads in it. Okay, now we go to more fallout from Saudi Arabia. Now we go to Wilbur Ross. Okay. Wilbur Ross is the Commerce Secretary, unfortunately, for the United States of America. And he was on the trip to Saudi Arabia with Donald Trump. And when he got there, he thought, this is good because they're, quote, liberalizing their society. Oh, they are? I'm not sure I knew that. So have they allowed women to drive once in a while? Has a princess been allowed to drive without being flanked by people? I'm not sure. I don't think that they have done much liberalization in Saudi Arabia at all. But Wilbur Ross and the Trump team would like to make some deals and get paid. So all of a sudden, Saudi Arabia is great. I don't know what you're talking about. Now, during the campaign, Donald Trump had said over and over that we really should be going after Saudi Arabia, that when we attacked Iraq, we should have considered Saudi Arabia instead, because 15 out of the 19 hijackers were Saudis. Now that is true, and it was one of the things we gave him credit for during the campaign. Hey, like nobody said that, and it has the merit of being accurate, honest, and if he actually focuses on the real problems that emanate from Saudi Arabia, that would be wonderful. The Saudis funded a lot of the insurgency against our troops in Iraq when we're in the middle of that mess. So the Saudis have a lot to pay for and a lot to explain to us. And in fact, Trump had talked about how maybe they should do compensation for us. Now they go over there, Trump bows to them, and there's no talk of compensation, there's no talk of holding the Saudis accountable. Instead, Wilbur Ross comes out and says this.
I think the other thing that was fascinating to me, there was not a single hint of a protester anywhere there during the whole time we were there. Not one guy with a bad placard. Instead,
but Secretary Ross, that may be not necessarily because they don't have those feelings there, but because they control people and don't allow them to come and express their feelings quite the same as we do here.
In theory, that could be true, but boy, there was certainly no sign of it. There was not a single effort at any incursion. There wasn't anything.
In theory, that could be. No, it's not in theory true, it's in practice true. You think that they liked you, you schmuck? I don't know, man. Are they just pure evil or are they just stupid? I think Wilbur Ross genuinely looked around and was like, oh man, they really like us. They're very civil around here. And there's no protesters at all. No bad placards. I love authoritarian dictatorships. Yeah, of course. You know what they do to protesters here? In fact, let me read you graphic 45. This is Aidan McLaughlin at Mediaite. As many on social media have pointed out, that may have something to do with Saudi Arabia's track record of jailing and sometimes beheading protesters. Yeah, Wilbur, I got news for you. You're not gonna get a lot of bad placards when you chop protesters' heads off. I don't know if that's the kind of liberalizing that you like and that you're in favor of and would like to head us in that direction towards, or you just don't understand anything about Saudi Arabia. Pick your poison. But apparently he couldn't stop gushing about the Saudi. Here's more.
And at the end of the trip, as I was getting back on the plane, the security guards from the Saudi side who'd been helping us over the weekend all wanted to pose for a big photo op, and then they gave me 2 gigantic bushels of dates as a present.
Oh my God, the Saudis are so good. They even allow foreign dignitaries who they're making billion-dollar deals with to have bushels of dates. The Saudis are great, and yet people complain about them. Okay, fine, 15 out of the 19 hijackers were Saudis, and they funded terrorism against us over and over again, but they gave us dates. Wow, thank you, Wilbur. I hadn't considered that other point. On the other hand, Wilbur Ross is also the callous maniac who, when referring to the Syrian bombing that we did, said that he called it, quote, after dinner entertainment. Scores of people were killed, but Wilbur Ross was entertained. And now he'll have some dates to eat with his after dinner entertainment, courtesy of the Saudis. And you Trump voters thought that Trump was a populist who was going to hold Saudis accountable. Does it look like he's holding them accountable? It kind of looks like he's kissing their ass. Okay. Now, we move forward to Israel. So Donald Trump has moved from Saudi Arabia to Israel. He got there and immediately, guess what he did? Guess what he did? You all know it. It doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. You all know it. He caused a mess. Of course he did. Of course he did. So they're doing a photo op. You can tell how visibly uncomfortable Prime Minister Netanyahu is. I'm no fan of Netanyahu. He's a right winger. I got no interest in him. But I almost almost felt a little bit of sympathy for him in this. You can tell he's trying to wrap it up, and then as Trump is saying this stupid stuff he shouldn't be saying, you can almost see him grinding his teeth like, oh, for Christ's sake, don't say that. Now, let me give you context before we roll the video for you guys. Now, remember, just a short time ago, Trump had a Russian foreign minister and ambassador at the White House. And there, he accidentally spilled the beans and told him about intelligence that we had gotten from Israel. Now, no one accused him of saying to the Russians, I got it from Israel. That was revealed in a leak afterwards, because apparently Israeli intelligence was furious because they thought the Russians could figure out who their source was based on the information that Donald Trump gave them, and that source's life was in danger, and they're considering not sharing intelligence with us anymore, right? But nobody said that Trump came in and was like, hey, Russians, I got this stuff from Israel. And McMaster had to clarify later, saying, look, Trump doesn't even know where we got the intelligence, because he doesn't pay attention to the briefings. Nonetheless, he goes to Israel, and this is not something you're supposed to be talking about in public. The US has not officially acknowledged that it came from Israel, and Israel has not officially acknowledged that it came from Israel. So until Trump says this, no one technically knows that. So yet another leak of classified intelligence in front of the whole press by this knucklehead in chief. Watch.
Just so you understand, I never mentioned the word or the name Israel. Never mentioned it during that conversation. They were all saying I did. So you had to know the story wrong. Never mentioned the word Israel.
I was like, no, I was trying to leave the room. But you just mentioned Israel. You just mentioned it in front of all the cameras of the whole wide world. We had never officially acknowledged, it was a leak. We had never officially acknowledged that the source came from Israel. You just confirmed it. I want to tell you guys something, okay? I never said Israel. I never told the Russians it's Israel. I mean, of course it is, but I never told them that. One, it's a straw man. No one accused you of that, you knucklehead. Number two, you just acknowledged it. And then I was like, oh, yeah. Now, publicly he has to say, oh, our relationship has never been better. Oh, yes, of course. The reality is a lot of right-wingers in Israel are upset at Trump for not immediately moving the embassy to Jerusalem as he promised during the campaign. He's going to the Western Wall. He's the first president to do that, but not going with Netanyahu. And so far, a lot of the things that he promised Israel, he has not done. So they're unhappy with that, let alone the fact that he compromised their intelligence. So now you can argue on which side of those issues the US should actually be on. What you can't argue is that Donald Trump is a smart man, because he most certainly is not. Okay, I've got a lot more where that came from. We just scratched the surface of this foreign trip. When we come back, not only do we have the SWAT heard around the world, you're gonna love it. The bow, okay, these are great, fun stories. And then World of Substance, Jeremy Corbyn in the UK, can he actually win this upcoming election? And then if we've got time, who is the most accomplished senator based on amendments they have actually gotten into law in the United States Senate? You will both be surprised and totally not surprised when we return.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hassan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hassan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown. Was that good, guys?
Okay, not enough hashtag use. Hashtag abs, hashtag model, hashtag woke bae.
Hashtag one black friend.
I'm thinking more rings.
I got him here.
You need more accessories, way more accessories.
don't know where to put it.
Come on, throw these on. Woke bae, not sleep bae.
More sexy too.
When's the last time you posted on Instagram? Too long.
days?
Come on, man. No, you need to post at least once an hour. What's the outfit of the day today? Is this what you're going with?
This is what I'm gonna go with now.
We need more accessories. We need.
This doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't.
For your gay audience, man.
Yeah,
Come
the
on.
gays love you, man.
Okay. What else? What else do I need to do?
You haven't appropriated a culture in a week.
We have like a kimono or something.
Damn, that
about the
looks good
video?
on you,
Is
dude.
this-
Perfect. How many rings you got on? Do we have any more?
I got 3 more.
Yeah, can we get more rings on this?
And when you're done, kiss the ring. Look at the camera. Kiss the ring. Maybe like a little wink.
Islam's role in terrorism and all the Huffington Post articles weren't doing well. I wasn't.
How many likes did our last outfit of the day picture have?
Only like 100,000.
So I think that's where your focus needs to be. I hear you on all the blah, blah, blah social issue. We need to focus on followers.
Kids in Yemen.
We don't care if you sleep at night.
Dab, mother. Dab.
Okay, I'll dab.
There you go. There you go.
More.
Talk about yourself more.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah. Be more into it.
Instagram is important for me. Americans losing access to healthcare coverage.
I hear you. Attack Tommy more.
I've done it so many. She shoots out of her living room now. It's like punching down now.
We're okay with that. But it helps the brand.
We made you. We got you verified.
You're nothing
like, come
without
on.
us.
So I don't know what else I need to do here.
Dude, just take off that shirt.
That's exactly why Tommy Lauren is stupid. I hate you. I'm Hassan Piker. Follow me on Instagram.
Hashtag woke bae.
Hashtag woke bae. Please follow me. Please.
All right, back on the Young Turks, I am Sock writes in, Ivanka and or Melania totally miss out on an opportunity to sell a line of headscarves on QVC. Oh, they're gonna regret that, man. That was some money to be made there. Deborah NYC writes in, it's impossible to watch footage of Trump meeting with foreign leaders without feeling deeply embarrassed for our country. I totally agree, Deborah, 100% right. Jackie McCaffrey writes in, I don't like Netanyahu, but my heavens, he kept control of himself through gritting teeth so hard, probably broke some. I'm right there with you again. And then finally, LL Bishop says Trump's only thought was to tell everyone it wasn't my fault. Pathetic. Agreed. All right, now let's stay on this trip for a super fun story. Okay. Have you seen the SWAT heard around the world, seen around the world? It's Melania rejecting Donald Trump, trying to hold her hand. This is nothing but a fun story, but I'm gonna back it up with a lot of context. First, let's watch the video of them in Israel together. Okay, that was super fun. What I love is how J.R. Jackson slows down the videos. Because if you just saw it as a GIF or whatever online, you might be like, wait, what's that? Did she really swat it? And when it slows down, he's got it out there forever. Seems like for a couple of hours. He's like, come on, come on, come on, hold my hand. And she's like, bam! Get that out of here. Okay, so now the context is this is not the first time. So let me show you a similar situation from back in January.
See the president-elect of the United States. See the president-elect of the United States.
President-elect of the United States.
Again, it's awesome when you slow it down. He tries to hold her hand. She does for about half a second. Not only does she let it go, but she again does this like please get away from me. Now look, if you're wondering what this might be about, and remember, she's not at the White House. She's using Barron Trump's schooling in New York as an excuse not to live with Donald Trump, which we could hardly blame her for. But I don't know if you know this, they have really, really good private schools in Washington, D.C. That's where first couples move their kids because it's the president. Plus, you might know that they're not gonna stay there long. Okay, but so in terms of why this might be happening, during the campaign, we found out a million things that probably Melania Trump didn't know either. From the I just grab women whenever I want to, and because I'm a star, you can get away with it. How he tried to have sex with that particular anchor that he was talking about. She's married, but I was gonna buy her furniture, he said, and try to sleep with her anyway. Did Melania know all that? We found out stories about how while she was pregnant, Melania was pregnant, in the middle of an interview, she went upstairs and Donald Trump then basically sexually assaulted the female reporter. He showed her around the house and then cornered her in one of their rooms and tried to sleep with her. While Melania, who was pregnant, during the interview together, had gone upstairs for a little while, okay? So now, probably a lot of that was news to her. I mean, probably not news to her that she married a monster, and so I don't shed too many tears that she's in the situation that she's in now, but probably some of that stuff she had no idea about and found out during the campaign. And she knows Donald Trump. They can pretend anything they like out in public. But the reality is she probably saw those stories and thought, oh yeah, that's him. He did it, that's him. Besides which, some of them are on tape. You hear him saying it, right? About how he's trying to sleep with the anchors, etc. So then that maybe explains this tweet that had gone up a little while ago. And I didn't cover this when it first came out because I was dismissive of it because I thought it must be a mistake. So it's a reference to how that they're building a wall, is the only real wall he's built is between him and his wife. And Melania liked that tweet on her account. So people are like, whoa, what are you liking about building a wall between you and Donald Trump? But I assumed it was just an honest mistake. But she doesn't tweet that often. She doesn't like that often on Twitter, etc. But now, given the full context of what's happening, oh, there's trouble at home. I mean, there's a reason why Donald Trump is home alone at the White House. So that SWAT was super clear. Now, I don't care about their private lives, right? So it's just a fun story. If Donald Trump was great on the policies and he was passing Medicare for all and getting college education for all your kids so you guys can live the American dream and they can live the American dream, and he was doing all these wonderful things, but his wife didn't like him, I'd be like, oh, what am I gonna do, right? But in this case, it's equally not relevant because we dislike his policy. So I'm just telling you what's happening because that was real. It definitely happened. But don't take it too seriously. That is not how you should judge Donald Trump. You should judge him on the merits. And there, he's a far bigger disaster. As a country, we should be doing this. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's go to another part of his apology tour. No. Okay. So Donald Trump had criticized Barack Obama for not using the words radical Islamic terrorism. He said it in, of course, tweet after tweet after tweet. Why won't Obama say it? Yeah, he's so soft and weak. If he says it, then all the problems would go away. He's going to Saudi Arabia, so he has a chance to do it right this time. And Donald Trump could come in there and tell him like he did during the campaign, hey, look, Islam's a problem, okay? Well, my country has a problem, it's Islam. And so we got to do a complete and total shutdown of Muslims entering the country. That's what he said during the campaign. He could tell them, hey, the Saudis, I told you, you're part of the problem here. You guys attacked us on 9/11 and we were way too soft on you. And then he could talk about radicalism. Did he do about any of those things? No, of course not, no. The most he did was, instead of saying Islamic extremism, not radical, not anything, he was supposed to say, he was supposed to say Islamist extremism, which is apparently much softer. I'll explain that to you in a second. He went off script and said Islamic extremism. Whoa, Islamic instead of Islamist extremism. So let's explain the difference. For clarification, Mediaite writes, Islamic terrorism presumes that extremism is a fundamental aspect of the Muslim faith. Islamist terrorism, on the other hand, refers to the extremist movement that tries to connect with and draw support from the rest of the Muslim world. If you're thinking there's a lot of BS wordplay, I think you're largely right. So I know, look, Obama had good reasons for not saying it. He's like, I don't want to give these guys legitimacy. That's like saying Dylann Roof was a white terrorist or a Christian terrorist. It somehow implies that other white people should be, are somehow responsible, or he stood for other white people or other Christians when he murdered all those people in the church in Charleston, South Carolina. I get that logic. Nonetheless, it is small wordplay. Did anybody in the Muslim world outside of a few diplomats notice the difference between Islamic and Islamist? Now, I actually have two different takeaways from this. But before that, I just want to give you the full context. Here's Donald Trump himself saying it. Watch.
That means honestly confronting the crisis of Islamic extremism and the Islamicists and Islamic terror of all kinds. We must stop what they're doing to inspire, because they do nothing to inspire but kill.
Okay, the first part is about how he was a big tough guy and the right wing loved it, about how he's going to go and punch the Saudis in the face. He did no such thing. That little tiny tweak was as much as he did and as far as he went. So he didn't talk about how you guys are going to pay us, like he said on the campaign trail. He didn't talk about how he's going to hold them accountable for terrorism. He certainly didn't hold them accountable for human rights. Said, hey man, we're not here to insult you. You do whatever you want. In other words, you do you, boo. And he is in fact their boo. He then did of course, we told you about the $110 billion arms deal, which actually by the end could be $600 billion, giving them more weapons to bomb Yemen, let alone whatever else that they want to do. And remember, the Saudis are fundamentalists. Now, they're not Islamic terrorists, kind of, like even those, like I'm talking about the government. Obviously 15 out of the 19 hijackers were, and a lot of the people who attacked us in the Iraqi insurgency were funded by the Saudis. But the Saudi government, you could have a lot of different opinions about them, but in terms of the, calling them terrorists, I guess that's too far, but they are fundamentalists, right? They have the same ideology. We say, oh my God, we have to attack ISIS, they're beheading people. The Saudi government beheads people. Sometimes they behead people for protesting. So it's not like they're not the fundamentalists that deserve a lot of scorn for that, but big tough guy Donald Trump went over there and barely laid a glove on him. All he wanted to do was make financial deals and do what every other president did. So Trump is not the tough guy that you bargained for, even if you're a right winger. Now, the second part of this is he got the words wrong. So the reporters asked him about it. That was not in your prepared remarks. And here's what the the administration said. Jeff Zeleny reports, asked about the line in the speech today when Trump said Islamic instead of Islamist, a senior White House official said, quote, he's an exhausted guy. He just got there. This is not the beginning of the end of the foreign trip. This is the beginning of the foreign trip. Remember, this is the trip that is 9 days long, and Trump complained like a little baby that he wanted it to be only 5 days long. And he's like, oh my, do I have to go abroad for 9 days, meet with the Saudis and the Israelis and Europe? Can't we make it shorter? So this crybaby on the first day talks about how he's exhausted. Now let me remind you, you will recall that Trump often ripped Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election by suggesting that she did not have the stamina to withstand the duties of the presidency. What happened, Donnie boy? You said she wouldn't have the stamina, and here you are on the first day going, oh, I screwed up my words because I was exhausted. I went all the way from Washington to Saudi Arabia. In fact, if you forgot, let me remind you of all the times he talked about how other people were low energy and didn't have enough stamina. Watch.
You see, poor Jeb, he's doing another commercial on me, this guy. He's a maniac. This poor guy, I feel sorry, he's like a lost soul. But you know, this poor, pathetic, low energy guy, he gets up and he does a commercial.
She doesn't have the look, she doesn't have the stamina. I said she doesn't have the stamina. And I don't believe she does have the stamina. To be president of this country, you need tremendous stamina. With Saudi Arabia, I mean, can you imagine we're defending Saudi Arabia, and with all of the money they have, we're defending them and they're not paying? All you have to do is speak to them. Wait, you have so many different things you have to be able to do, and I don't believe that Hillary has the stamina.
Oh, that clip is just perfect. Can you imagine we're defending Saudi Arabia? Now he's all over Saudi Arabia bowing like, oh yeah, Saudis, oh you're giving me gold. I love gold, precious. Oh yes, Saudis, here's more business deals for you guys. I don't want to offend you guys though. But you screwed up your words. Let's go back to graphic 15. He's an exhausted guy. You know what you need, Donnie, in order to be president of the United States? You need stamina. That's what you need, stamina. Is there anything he said on the campaign trail that he hasn't already done the exact opposite of? Whether you liked him or you disliked him, how could you not see the overwhelming hypocrisy? All right, Trump supporters, keep closing your eyes, man. Yeah, no, he didn't bow. No, just, I mean, to be fair, to be exhausted on the first day, that's good stamina, that's high energy. Really? What a baby. Your guy that you thought was an alpha male, a little baby, goes on one trip. He's like, I'm tired. I screwed up my words because I'm too tired. I want a nap. Baby, sad. Okay, we're moving forward. Now let's go to the Russia probe. Okay. Washington Post with another big story about Trump campaign and perhaps administration connections to the Russians. And now we're getting close to home, literally. So let me go to the Post here. The law enforcement investigation into the possible coordination between Russia and the Trump campaign has identified a current White House official as a significant person of interest, showing that the probe is reaching into the highest levels of government, according to people familiar with the matter. They also report that this investigation is going quicker than expected. They have gone deeper than expected already. And wait till you get to the real twist here. Yes, it might be Kushner. We'll talk about that in a second. But I think the second part of the story is even bigger. But let me tell you about who it might be first. Current administration officials who have acknowledged contacts with the Russian officials include President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as well as Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. So it could be one of those three, but apparently they are focusing more on Kushner, according to the Washington Post report. Now let me give you more. Although the case began quietly last July as an effort to determine whether any Trump associates coordinated with Russian operatives to meddle in the presidential election campaign, the investigative work now being done by the FBI also includes determining whether any financial crimes were committed by the people close to the president. Go ahead, you tell me what I told you. I told you this isn't just about Russian meddling in the elections and doing some fake news and WikiLeaks, etc. That's not. Look, I personally don't even think that's a big deal. If they mess with the ballot box, that's a gigantic deal, but there's no evidence of that. But to me, the real reason that the Russians were helping Trump was because they wanted something in return. What is it that they want in return? I believe that it is partly the lifting of sanctions, which is blocking a $500 billion deal that they had with ExxonMobil, hence Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State. But I also think that Donald Trump had a lot of financial dealings with them. That's not a blind guess. We know that he was in the same group in Deutsche Bank as a lot of the Russian oligarchy is, and they called out the global laundromat. We know that he's done real estate deals with them over and over again, and his sons have said that his golf courses are financed by the Russians. There is a Trump server in Pennsylvania that received constant communication from Alpha Bank in Russia. So there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but the FBI can uncover further evidence that is not just circumstantial, but can show you actual bank accounts, etc. Now, if they get into that, and now apparently they are investigating this as a financial deal, well, that's a giant story. And that easily, if proven, easily brings down the president and whoever else is involved. So let's go back to that. The White House also has acknowledged that Kushner met with Kislyak, the Russian ambassador to the United States, in late November. Kushner has also acknowledged that he met with the head of a Russian development bank, God help me with this name, Vneshekonombank Bank, which has been under US sanctions since July of 2014. But curiously, the president's son-in-law initially omitted contacts with foreign leaders from a national security questionnaire. In other words, he was trying to cover something up. You don't leave that out. First of all, you know that you met with those guys. It's not like, oh, I met with the Russian ambassador. Oh, that just slipped my mind. Why, was that important? Of course, you knew that it was important as you were doing those forms. Everybody in the whole world knew it was important. And it didn't slip your mind that you met with him and the Russian bankers. You left that out because you thought, oh, that could be incriminating. So let's go back to Vneshekonombank. They explained that they handle development for the state, and in early, Russian state obviously, and in early 2015, a man purporting to be one of its New York-based employees was arrested and accused of being an unregistered spy. So this bank obviously is connected to the Russian government, spies for the Russian government, or at least some employees do, and Kushner met with them, and very importantly, omitted it from the questionnaire when he was first coming into the government, and apparently has connections to the Russians, and now the investigation turns to financial dealings. That's where the rubber hits the road. That's where it gets really, really interesting. So we won't know until the FBI concludes this investigation and hopefully shares that evidence. But as I've told you from day one, if he did a financial deal, he is totally toast. And I believe he did. We'll see. But this is obviously big evidence that the FBI is now squarely looking into it. Okay, I gotta take another break. I haven't even gotten to the bow yet, let alone Corbyn, let alone Bernie Sanders. Go, come back, we'll be right back.
Complex subject. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
He said I had small hands. They're not smaller. I never heard that one before.
All right, we got a graphic incoming. Putting up 3, 2, 1. All right, video next. And next video. And power panel. And dropping it.
Welcome back to TYT Sports. Jason and Francis here. This is where everybody has to listen. TYT Sports, everybody.
I am your host, Francis Maxwell.
Jason here. Welcome to TYT Sports, Turks and Jerks. TYT Sports.
Steph Curry signed with Under Armour.
Tom Brady's mad, by the way.
Do you hear me? Back on TYT Sports!
Actually, leave a link in the description box below instead of lying about leaving a link in the description box below.
Editor, throw up another picture of the UK bacon. And another. And in fact, throw in another one.
Let me see your belly.
Beast mode.
All right, guys, I'm back. No time for tweets. I gotta go. We got a great second hour for you guys coming up as well. Okay, so let's do it. Without further ado, let's do the bow. Okay. So if there's one thing I know about conservatives, it is that they do not want their presidents bowing to any foreign leader, let alone the Saudis. I know this because back when Obama was accused of doing it, there was great outrage over it. They said, back then, this was Fox News headline, Obama's apparent bow to Saudi king outrages conservatives. Outrage, how dare he? They said it was, quote, and Washington Times did, an extraordinary protocol violation, extraordinary. Let's show you the picture back then of Barack Obama. It looks, I don't know, the Obama administration said they weren't bowing, but that he looks like he's doing something over there, right? And I know that that is horrible. I know it because conservatives said it. So, in fact, the guy who said it most, Donald Trump, let's go to him. He said, the amateur. First, Obama was caught bowing to the Saudi king, but now the president of Mexico. It's one thing that Trump won't do, that's bowing, that's for sure. So, you won't see any of that in this video. No, you won't. Okay. So back then, Weekly Standard says about Obama, American presidents do not bow before foreign dignitaries, whether they are princes, kings, or emperors. Won't stand for it. right? 2009 GOP political ad. They even ran an ad on this and saying Obama, quote, he begs and pleads and bows. Oh my God. And then one last one from Donald Trump. He says, Donald Trump clearly puts this country first, security, vets, economy, and won't bow down to other world leaders. Of course not. So, without further ado, show me Donald Trump bowing like a dog to the Saudis. Sad. My favorite part was not the bow, it was the curtsy. He did the bow and then, Wasik did, oh yes, yes. Are you guys still buying all our weapons? And can I do more business dealing with you guys later when I get personally enriched? What happened now? What happened now? I thought you weren't gonna bow, Donald. All of a sudden you're bowing. No, when you ask conservatives, they say, no, I don't believe my lying eyes. I don't believe it. So here's a new headline from conservatives. Trump shakes hands with Saudi leader, doesn't bow as Obama appeared to do. Really? It's not what the videotape shows. And here is a Trump supporter saying, well, more of a squat than a bow. I mean, we're allowed to squat, aren't we? Come on. Now look, is this a real issue? It wasn't a real issue when they attacked Obama with it. It isn't a real issue now. I don't give a damn if he bowed. If he's being polite to their leaders, look, I got no love for the Saudi government. I've said it a billion times. I've explained it in 13 different ways why I think they're working against American interests. I think it's a crime that they're called our ally. We're hooked on their stupid, cheap oil. And it's not even us, it's our leaders who personally benefit from it. It drives me crazy. But you want to do some politeness as he puts a medal around your neck. And by the way, there's a picture now of George W. Bush, Obama, and Trump doing the same exact thing as they put the same exact King Abdul Aziz medal around his neck. But you guys were the ones who came up with this nonsense in the first place. You guys pretended that what Obama did was an outrage and it was an extraordinary protocol violation. So when your man does the same thing, then you don't get to go around and say, well, he was just squatting. He was just squatting. Maybe he had, I don't know, intestinal issues. Just squatting. It's not a bow. It looks like a bow. It looks like the same thing he threw in a curtsy. But what am I going to do? Just admit it. You make up nonsense controversies, and when your guy does the same thing, you come up with BS excuses. I will give credit in a completely unexpected way, and this is probably the first time it's ever happened, to Roger Stone, who I disagree with on everything else in the world. He at least had the decency to point out that, of course, it was a bow, and he wrote on Twitter, candidly, this makes me want to puke. Okay, at least be honest about it. So he's getting the same damn medal that all the other guys got, and he's doing the same bow that everybody else did. Now, let me give you one last word from Donald Trump before the trip began. According to Steve Cortez reporting on this, last words from POTUS before deplaning Air Force One, quote, I catch one American bowing here and you're on the next Saudi flight home. Well, we did hear that Donald Trump didn't want the trip to be that long. He complained that it was too long at 9 days. It tested his stamina since he's a low energy president. Maybe he was trying to send himself back home after a day. That's a theory nobody's come up with before. Either way, I don't care about his bowing or not bowing. I care about policy. But all you conservatives who pretended it was the most outrageous thing in the world, I assume, like Roger Stone today, you are vomiting all over yourselves at what a weak and pathetic leader you have in Donald Trump. Just be honest about it, that's all. Okay, now, I said I agreed with Stone. I actually don't agree with Stone. I think there's nothing to vomit over, but at least he was being, for the first time in his life, semi-honest. Okay, anyways, we move forward. All right, Corbyn. So I made an outrageous prediction back in June of 2016. In fact, here, let me show it to you. It was on Twitter. I said, I'm going to double down on my prediction from 3 days ago. Jeremy Corbyn will be the next prime minister of the UK. doesn't matter when elections are held. Now, at the time, he was way, way behind, and people in the responses were like, you don't know anything about the UK elections. That's an outrageous statement to make. Even if it takes a couple more years before the elections, there's no way that Jeremy Corbyn can win. And odds makers just 2 years ago had him at 200 to 1 to even become the leader of the Labour Party. Man, I wish I'd had time to put money down on that one, right? And of course, he is the leader of Labour right now. But I was told, no, of course not. Now, I said, of course, during elections, Theresa May was put in without going to the actual electorate. She was chosen in Parliament. So I said, whenever the next elections are held, and here they did a snap election. So Theresa May thought, well, I've got such a huge lead, I can't lose. A woman running as an establishment candidate who thinks she can't lose. Where have I seen that movie before? I can't quite tell. Anyway, so she called for a snap election, and in America this blows us away, but the election's held in just 50 days, and then they're done with it. Here in America, it takes like 2 years to hold an election and billions of dollars of corruption poured in. Anyway, well, on April 19th of 2017, she did. She had an enormously, the Conservative Party leading, Theresa May, of course, from the Conservative Party, leading 45 to 26. Jesus, that's a 19-point lead. I've actually seen some that were even larger than that. I saw one poll where they had a 24-point lead. Jesus, Lord mercy, 24 points. I guess I was wrong, right? And the elections are right around the corner. There's only 2.5 weeks left. They're going to be on June 8th. Wait a minute. Now there's a new poll out, and it's from May 16th, and it's 46-33. So 24 got cut down to 13. Here comes Corbyn, but hold, wait, we're not done yet, because there's a new poll out right now. May 18th and 19th, they did the poll. All of a sudden, 44-35, we're down to single digits. In a very short period of time, that lead got cut down from 24 points to 9. Here comes Corbyn. Now, if you're not familiar with the UK and their politicians, understandable if you live somewhere else in the world, but Corbyn is a significant progressive. I would say that he is significantly to the left of me. So we are told by the establishment in the UK, no. The people of the United Kingdom are not interested in Jeremy Corbyn. He is way too left. They like the stability of Theresa May, and they have some polling to back them up. I get it, right? So here it is. Here, let me show you one that is on the side of the establishment. So May retains, they explain in The Guardian, a positive net approval rating, the difference between those who approve or disapprove of her, of 17%. Corbyn has a net rating of negative 18%. So he's a divisive figure. So I get that, I understand that. Except I remember a guy who also was net negative and was a polarizing figure running an establishment against an establishment candidate, but the people hated the establishment so much, they voted for him anyway. And part of the reason he got those negative ratings, well, Trump earned it, but here Corbyn has been endlessly attacked by the media. The establishment does not like Jeremy Corbyn. You know why? He promises real change, significant change. And when the establishment hears that, whether it's here in the US or in the UK, they think, no, don't rock the boat, don't rock the boat. Why? They're on the boat, it's their boat. So if you're doing really well and you're part of the establishment media in the US or in the UK, you think, this is such a nice boat we have. Don't rock it, and plus don't even tell me that there's an iceberg straight ahead. The reason I predicted Corbyn, the reason why I said back in 2013 that Bernie Sanders could beat Hillary Clinton when he was down by 60 points to Hillary Clinton, is because people can't stand the establishment anymore. The reason why I warned on ABC right after the DNC that Donald Trump could win the election, and I predicted that he would win at that time, was because people hate the establishment, but the establishment doesn't want to see it. They see no evil, they hear no evil, and they certainly don't talk it. So if it's a populist candidate from the right or a populist one from the left, they go, no way, there's no way they could win, and we smeared him to no end, and we got their negative numbers up, and it's okay, he'll never catch up. One more piece of neverness from The Guardian here. They quote Adam Drummond, and he's in political polling, and he says, Labor-leaning voters who dislike Jeremy Corbyn appear to be gradually returning to the fold, safe in the knowledge that they can vote against the Tory landslide without making him prime minister. So don't worry, Donald Trump isn't gonna win anyway. You might as well just vote for him, or don't vote against Hillary Clinton. It doesn't matter, she's gonna win anyway. Okay, look, in the UK, the size of the win matters a lot because it's a parliamentary system. It's not like here in the US, where one person is gonna win and they're gonna be the president. How many seats you have in parliament is enormously important. So if you support Jeremy Corbyn or Labor or progressive ideals overall, you got to get out there and vote because that makes all the difference in the world. Even if he doesn't win, she might not be able to put together a majority, in which case, then his chances are much, much better. So every vote counts, even more so in London, I should say in the UK. And in fact, today's the last day to register. So we'll put these links in the description box below too, but go to gov.uk/register-2-vote. Again, links will be in the description box for you guys. The Canary.co has done a great job of informing people about the progressive movement in the UK, and the peoplesmomentum.com is kind of a somewhat rough equivalent of our revolution that Bernie Sanders has here in the US for Britain. If you want to check out the Labor Party manifesto, we'll have this link down below as well. And part of the reason that the lead is closing now, guys, is because Labor Party put out their manifesto and people kind of liked it. They're like, oh, that seems to be for us and not for the people in charge. And then in their infinite cockiness, the people who called for this election in the first place, the Conservative Party, then put out their manifesto and it talked about how it was going to cut heating assistance, etc. In other words, we're going to help the establishment and we're going to hurt the average British citizen. And guess what happened? All of a sudden, their numbers started to go down. Combination of hubris, an establishment candidate thinking that they can't lose, and a populace that we already know is angry at the establishment. That's why they voted for Brexit. Now, one last thing, guys. Can you imagine if instead of only having the right wing run populist candidates, the left wing actually had a populist candidate that won? Like, they never give us a chance. It's either the establishment or some right wing lunatic. Why don't we try a reasonable progressive populist and see how it turns out? Well, if you're in the UK, this is a rare opportunity. You get to speak not just for you guys, but honestly for the rest of the world. And to say, okay, we tried populism from the right and it has been a disaster throughout the world. We tried the establishment for decades and decades and they told us it was gonna trickle down to us, and it still hasn't come down to us. In reality, the upper class kept almost all of the gains. Why don't we for once try a progressive populist and have him fight for us and see what happens? And the reason Corbyn has that credibility is because he's been just like Bernie Sanders, doing the same thing for all this time. Look at this. That's Corbyn on the left fighting for civil rights in the UK and being arrested for it. That's Sanders that's Corbyn on the left and Sanders on the right fighting for civil rights in the US and being arrested for it. Same guys, basically, of course they don't agree on all the policies, but fighting the same fight for all these decades. And as the establishment tells us that Jeremy Corbyn, please, has no chance, there's no way he's going to win, I do declare. I think that there is some chance he's gonna win. I think that's why he closed the 24-point lead to 9-point lead so incredibly quickly. I think the Conservative Party has done themselves no favors with their manifesto in the UK. And I think this election is nowhere near over. Can't wait to do a Told You segment. For God's sake, UK, everyone else out there, try progressivism for a change. After all of the horrible things we've gone through with the right wing and the establishment, what do you have left to lose? And look, and it's beyond that. It could actually be real change, positive change. Give it a shot. Okay, speaking of which, that leads me to the final thing I promised you guys, which is Bernie Sanders over here in the US, which I admittedly do know more about. Okay. So I am told by the establishment here in the US that Bernie Sanders is not practical, he can't get things done. Well, that's funny. Zed Jelani at Alternet, also, of course, originally at The Intercept is where he published this, did an interesting analysis. He explains that over the past few decades, the House of Representatives was only controlled by the Democrats from 2007 to 2010. So for all the rest of that time, from 94 to now, the House has been controlled by Republicans. So who is the amendment king? Well, you can see from the graphics, but there he is, Bernie Sanders. Wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. If the Republicans controlled it for all that time, wouldn't it be a Republican that passed the most amount of amendments into the bills that they passed? And so if you don't understand that, let me explain. They'll have bills like a budget bill that's gonna pass no matter what. The question is, how many amendments can you get put in there to actually effectuate change? And how can you get a bipartisan coalition to agree to those amendments, to put them in the bill and have that become law? Well, it turns out it wasn't a Republican who had the most amount of amendments that whole time. It should have been Tom DeLay or Dennis Hastert or John Boehner or Paul Ryan, but it wasn't any of them. And it wasn't Hillary Clinton or any other establishment Democrat. It was Bernie Sanders, #1 in most amendments passed in that time period. What happened? I thought he couldn't get anything done. Do you see how the establishment media lies to you day in, day out? That's the guy that they sneered at. And they've been sneering at Bernie Sanders the whole time. Bill Richardson also used to be a congressman. He later became a governor of New Mexico. And he said about Bernie at the time, it is virtually impossible for an independent to be effective in the House. Well, Bill, what were you up to? I don't remember you passing a lot of amendments. Turns out it is possible. And what's the key? Just try. You'll be amazed at what you accomplish if you just try. And Bernie would try over and over again, and he would succeed more than any other colleague. Now, Barney Frank, who famously stood up for Hillary Clinton during the elections and told us, what do you guys want us to do? Let the Republicans get 100% of the banker money instead of just 80%? Yes, Barney, that's what we want. Taking 20% of the banker money and doing what they want gets you perpetual losses. You are outgunned 4-1. Get money out of politics, you schmuck. That's practical, that's real. That makes all the difference instead of just getting your ass handed to you for decade after decade. Anyway, back then he said about Bernie and other independents, actually there are almost no other independents, so this was definitely a shot at Bernie. He said, as an independent, you're kind of a homeless waif. Oh, okay. And then he went on to say, Bernie's holier than thou attitude, saying in a very loud voice he's smarter than everyone else and purer than everyone else, really undercuts his effectiveness. No, it doesn't. As you're about to see, he passed tremendous amendments into those legislations. And I'm gonna tell you what they are in a sec. But what Barney Frank is actually saying is, he's annoying the rest of us by pointing out how deeply corrupt we all are. Why won't he just be as corrupt as we are? He's so annoying with his holier than thou, where he actually cares about policy and actually gets it done, while we're all sitting here taking donor money and serving them. I hate Bernie. That's why the Democratic establishment hates Bernie Sanders and progressives who are not corrupt more than they hate Republicans. Republicans, they're playing patty cakes with. They're all part of the same system. You win, I become a lobbyist. What difference does it make, right? We all get to keep our jobs. If Bernie wins, the Democratic establishment doesn't keep their jobs. Then all of a sudden their corruption matters and it costs them their job. So to them, Bernie Sanders is so much more of a threat than even Donald Trump. This is why they've been attacking him for decades now, even though they're 100% wrong on the facts. So, Zed Jelani explains, despite the fact that the most right-wing Republicans in a generation controlled the House of Representatives between 1994 and 2006, the member who passed the most amendments during that time was not a right-winger like Bob Barr or John Boehner. The amendment king was instead Bernie Sanders. Now, to be fair, I mentioned Hillary Clinton earlier. She's in the Senate. This was in the House of Representatives. But Barney Frank was in the House. He didn't pass the most, and he had a tremendous amount of power, and he's talking about how Bernie Sanders couldn't be effective. Well, he passed a lot more amendments than you did, Barney. What were you doing? I know, collecting cash, cold hard cash from your donors. Okay, anyway, so now let me give you the exhaustive list of the amendments that Bernie Sanders got passed. The corporate crime accountability, you know how he did that? He shamed them into it, saying, hey, aren't you guys, you Republicans for law and order? What, are you gonna let corporate criminals get away with it? Boom, got it passed. Saving money for colleges and taxpayers. All the way back in '98, This is why people like him, because he's been on that same warpath. He's like, come on, everybody should get to live the American dream. It should be more affordable college. He says, then holding IRS accountable, protecting pensions. Deeply popular, he embarrassed them into another vote where they won, July 2002. Expanding free health care. They call it a broken record, we call it honesty. Back in 01, he got that passed. Getting tough on child labor, 01, he got it passed. Increasing funding for heating for the poor. With a deeply Republican House back in 04, still gets it passed. Fighting corporate welfare and protecting against nuclear disasters, 05, gets it passed. What happened? I thought he couldn't be effective. Now we go to the Senate. Greening the US government, gets it passed. Protecting our troops, gets it passed. Restricting the bailout to protect US workers. Now, both Republicans and Democrats at the time, happy to do those bailouts, and they didn't want a lot of the money going to US workers, they wanted to go to their banker donors. But he embarrassed them, made a public vote, and won. You win by fighting, you win by trying. Helping veteran kids win, helping veteran kids, that was a win as well. Exposing corruption in the military industrial complex. In Republican Senate, and well, at that point, you've got Republicans and Democrats in there. It's pretty close at that point. He still gets the win. You think the Democrats don't love the military industrial complex? They love it too, but he exposes their corruption and he gets a win. Support for treating autism in military healthcare, win. Win after win after win. Building, by the way, most of the time, bipartisan coalitions to get those wins. What happened? I thought he couldn't be effective. Remember that lie that not only the other Democrats and Hillary Clinton's team, but the media repeated over and over again during the primaries. Oh, he's not effective, it's not practical. You never did 1 ounce of research on it, did you? Okay. Now, Zed explains one interesting moment here. He said, another moment came with Sanders, who was then chair of the Veterans Committee, worked with Senator John McCain to overhaul the Veterans Administration. McCain praised Sanders' work on the bill in an interview with National Journal. Senator Jack Reed even went so far as to say the bill would have never passed without Sanders' ability to bring the parties to a deal. What happened? I thought he'll never get a deal with the Republicans. It turns out if you try and you stick to your guns, you actually can get deals done. It's not a matter of being holier than thou. It's not a matter of being pure. It's about actually caring to deliver for the American people. And if you do it the right way, you can even sometimes get Republicans to go along. What is John McCain gonna do after Bernie Sanders said, are you gonna help veterans, John, or are you not? He's gonna have to raise his hand and say, okay, fine, I'm gonna help the veterans. That's effective, that's practical. Okay, couple more here. Sanders was able to get the first ever audit of funds given out by the Federal Reserve, which made transparent over $2 trillion of funds handed out by the secretive organization. That is a giant win. He worked with some right-wing legislators there who also had issues with the Federal Reserve to say, hey, look, we're not gonna shut down the Federal Reserve. We're just asking for an audit. It's maybe the most powerful force on earth, and you're telling us we can't even know where your money is, what you spend it on. What does the Fed spend their money on? How are you structuring the bailouts? And these are such fair requests, but the establishment, the lackeys that they are, had never even bothered to ask. And when Bernie asked, and he brought together a bipartisan coalition, they did it, and we got the audit of the Federal Reserve. Maybe the most effective legislator of our time, and they told you the exact opposite. One last lie of the establishment is, oh yeah, maybe as a legislator, although they would never concede that. Maybe they should actually do research and be in the news business. Anyway, but if he's an executive, he can't get things done. So he was only an executive once when he was the mayor of Burlington. So let's go to that time and see what happens. They say that in his 8 years as mayor, he rejuvenated a city that was considered by many to be dying, laying out progressive policies that cities around the country later adopted. He's been right for 40 to 50 years. They hold that against him. We see that as a reason to vote for him, not to vote against him. They're like, the guy never changes. He says he's for progressive politics and policies that worked and was copied around the country. How bad? Why is that bad? That's great. Okay, last part of Burlington. When Sanders was mayor of Burlington, one of his big accomplishments was to increase civic life in the city. During the course of his terms, voter turnout doubled. So when Bernie Sanders talks about a political revolution and Anderson Cooper sneers at him as he did during the debates and goes, yeah, but how are you actually gonna get it done, Bernie? He says, well, a political revolution is that more people come out and vote, we get real change, we get the legislators that we think are going to bring you that change, that's the political revolution, and then we get it done. Right, getting more people to vote. Right, good luck with that, Bernie. Well, he's already done it. That is a stunning number. It didn't go up by 25%. Voter turnout doubled when Bernie Sanders was mayor of Burlington, Vermont. Everything the mainstream media told you about Bernie Sanders is a lie. Look at all the research, do your own research. Thank God for the internet, because now we can do that and we're not stuck on that propaganda called cable news. So now, by the way, one final piece of the lie, not having to do with what a great job he didn't get all this legislation passed. They tell you, Bernie Sanders, okay, fine, all right, you got us, fine, he was an effective legislator, fine, he's now the most popular politician in the country. Now some of them are even finally saying, fine, I guess he would have beat Donald Trump. So we were right about all of that, right? Had a 12-point lead on Donald Trump on the day of the election. Oh, but he didn't run an election, they would have run ads against him. Really, is that how elections work? Wow, you guys are so smart. Anyway, but they say, no, all of that is irrelevant, guys, because we're just gonna eliminate him based on age. At the next election, he's gonna be 79. Well, that's it, we're at the end of the conversation. So, hey, establishment, who's your leading candidate now? Look, I love Booker and Gillibrand and those guys. But you know what, the guy touring Iowa and going to all these different early voting states is maybe the guy that should have won all along, Joe Biden. Joe Biden's great, yeah, Joe Biden. And he's a kind of a regular guy, right? I mean, he takes the train every once in a while, but the establishment absolutely loves him. So just a real quick question for you guys. How old is Joe Biden gonna be at the same time in the 2020 elections? 78. So Bernie will be 79 and Joe Biden will be 78. What happened? You thought age was determinative, that it was the main thing that matters, that we can't even consider Bernie because of how old he is. But not one person has written about how Joe Biden would be too old to run for president. It's almost as if the establishment doesn't like to have their boat rocked, and they think Bernie Sanders could actually get things done, and that's what they're afraid of. Young Turks. Turks, Hannah Kress, and Brett Ehrlich. What is this?
Woo-woo.
Okay, woo.
A mistake.
Okay, that is one theory. Brett, of course, from Pop Trigger, Hannah from Think Tank, although we all move around. All right, let me read some tweets for you guys. Actually, first, let me start with Super Chat on YouTube. Every time I think of that, I think of like the Super Friends. Like that's the kind of chat they would have. Superman to Wonder Woman would be like, I want to Super Chat you. Anyways.
I like the idea of them having their own social media platform.
Yeah. Anyway, so Grinderman writes in, just rabies. I don't know what it's in relationship to, but God bless your heart. So you asked for one, I'll give it to you.
Rabies.
Okay, all right, back to the tweets. Hashtag TYT Live, talk to us while the show is live, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on tytnetwork.com/live. Okay, JNF writes in, I'm willing to give Trump a pass on the bow since they were giving him a necklace/pendant, but there was no need for the curtsy. I think that's a fair line to draw in that case. RDGP says, I'm a Brit. The electoral system's not the same as US presidential elections. We also don't go for populism as much too. Artie, agree to disagree. You are wrong. How do you explain Brexit? That was clearly populist. The establishment hated it, didn't want it to happen at all, and told us that there was no chance it was gonna happen, and you guys went populist. So.
Yeah, but besides that, that's one time.
Besides the thing that started the great unraveling, other than that, what do you have? Anyway, Jack McAnally says people are voting against Theresa May / the Tories, then voting for Corbyn. Exactly, Jack. That's the whole point. It's exactly what happened here. You think like the whole country was excited to vote for Donald Trump? We're like, yay, Donald. No, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to frame it, a lot of people basically voting against Hillary Clinton and the establishment. That's why, give me odds, I'll take the populace against the establishment every time all across the world these days. And finally, Chris Allen writes in, Bernie would be even better if he could rely on his fellow Democrats. Yes, he would be more effective and get Democratic votes more frequently, but that's the Democratic Party we have for now. Okay, by the way, I hope tomorrow I'm gonna have a segment for you guys on new Justice Democrats that are coming out, okay?
Wow.
So we are rocking and rolling. Go to justicedemocrats.com. If you wanna start donating to the candidates that are running, including the person running against Joe Manchin, go to justicedemocrats.com/donate. Okay, we got a lot of news. Hannah, you got it for us, let's do it.
Let's do it. So on Saturday, video of a little girl being dragged into the ocean by a sea lion went viral. Now, port authorities and online commenters are actually blaming her family for reckless behavior. Now, you've probably already seen the video. We can't show it to you now, but we do have some still images from it. So the sea lion jumps up, grabs her dress, pulls her in, to the water. Obviously, people are screaming, don't know how to react. It's very chaotic. And then a man jumps in after her and picks her out of the water. Now, before this all went down, people were throwing bread into the water to feed the sea lion, and he was coming up to eat it, or he or she. I don't know the sex of the sea lion.
It was Mark. So yeah, it's a he. Mark the sea lion.
They were coming up to eat the bread. And then he sort of comes up at her, and they all sort of ooh and ah. And then the next time he comes up, she's sitting now, and he grabs her and pulls her in. Now, I want to read you this quote from the chair of Steveston Harbor Authority. He says, "You wouldn't go up to a grizzly bear in the bush and hand him a ham sandwich, so you shouldn't be handing a 1,000-pound wild mammal in the water slices of bread. And you certainly shouldn't be letting your little girl sit on the edge of the dock with her dress hanging down after the sea lion has already snapped at her once. Just totally reckless behavior." Now, after this incident, they have put up some signs near the dock warning people that the sea lion is there. Warning them that there's actually a penalty for disturbing a marine mammal that can go up to $100,000, and also that it can cause some pretty serious infections that may actually lead to amputation of a limb or even death. What do you guys think? Do you think it was the parents' reckless behavior? Do you think people are being overly attackive of the parents?
Yeah, Okay, so I watched the video immediately because I got young kids. Well, I probably would have watched it without young kids anyway. It was a lot of fun. I mean, serious warning. And I watched it with my 6-year-old son. One, because I know he'd love it. Two, because it's a good warning, right? Be careful about animals. Here's the thing about animals: they're animals, right? They don't know. We all think that they're cute, like, oh, a sea lion, and throwing the bread in there in the video. And the moment that he pulls her into the water is like one of the most frightening things you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So like when he did it, both me and my son when we were watching the first time, we were like, ah!
Yeah. It's like I don't know. It's like when you see behind the scenes footage of like a stunt person who is on a string that's supposed to simulate what happens when you get blown back by an explosion, and they just yank them. That's what it is, because her hands go forward and she goes flying back. It's absolutely astonishing, but I mean, here's one way that you've been warned not to give food to these animals. They're called sea lions. They're not called sea kittens. They have names like lion. And if you ever have seen them, like at Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, they have this big area that everybody goes, and the sea lions are far away, and they're jerks. I don't know if you saw Finding Dory, but the sea lion, the way that they show it is like just hanging out, and then another sea lion tries to get up on that thing. They're just like, get away. And they yell and bite and claw at each other. They're not
That's good
nice
evidence
creatures.
for how awful these marine animals.
I mean,
you saw it in Finding Dory. It must be true.
No, I mean, I think this is just like a small example of a broader issue, right? Because I think people like see wild animals, and they want to get a picture, and they want to get close and have that interaction. And while I think it is great to foster a love for animals and build that relationship, you do have to remember that they're wild animals and they have wild instincts. And so they thought, the port officials are saying that they think that they must have thought that the dress was bread. And so, of course, you're feeding it bread, and then he thinks it's food, and then he's gonna pull it in, like, hello.
Or he's like, why the hell are you feeding me bread? I want to eat that girl. That's way more delicious looking.
So they're saying that he was probably just as surprised as she was that she fell into the water after. Like, you can see he's not trying to pull her down or anything like that.
I think we're interpreting his actions way too much.
I interviewed him.
Yeah, I know.
And he was like,
I'm just repeating what the port.
No, I get it. Yeah.
I'm not a doc.
You know what?
Watch Finding Dory. You'll learn a lot about science.
I know why people say it. You know why? Because they all secretly sing this in their head.
Animals are innocent.
Okay. But the reality is, animals are not innocent. They're just animals. They're not guilty, they're not innocent, they're not evil, they're not good, okay? And sometimes they see a little girl and they see lunch, and that doesn't make them bad people or animals. It just makes them a sea lion.
Yeah, exactly. But I totally get the instinct to be like, what was the sea lion thinking? I don't know, just don't get near it. You know?
Yeah, we just need to respect their space. That's what I think.
Sure.
Just like we're in their grill.
Way to go, grandpa. I mean, if it's not that kid's grandpa, he was like grandfather aged, who just didn't wait a half a second.
Right, yeah,
like
that was
his
very impressive.
Sunglasses come flying off. He's still got like his phone in his pocket.
Yeah.
It was just, and he was just fully in there. And then whoever pulled them out didn't care as much because they're just like yanking.
Yeah.
He didn't have a good time, but he saved the girl and she was unharmed.
Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah, they say that she has they didn't see any injuries. Apparently they fled the scene right after. I think they were in shock. So no injuries to be seen. So hopefully she's okay. Yeah. Hopefully Sea Lion's okay and everybody learned a good lesson.
Yeah, and look, I'm gonna double down on Brett. I've got that guy in the running for Turk of the Year because he was in there and rescued her so quick that I was blown away by it. There was no instinct of, hey, let me take my wallet out, let me take my phone. He's like, boom, gone, boom, got her out. I'm done.
Amazing.
I was like, good work, son.
Yeah, that's impressive. All right, should we move on to some other animal news? All right.
Great.
A highly regarded South African houndsman has been crushed alive by an elephant who was shot during the houndsman's hunting trip. Now, Thunis Botha, 51, was leading a hunt with clients when the group accidentally walked into the middle of a breeding herd of elephants at the Good Luck Farm near Hwanje National Park. Okay, which is a
bad luck farm.
A game reserve in Zimbabwe. Now, 3 of the elephant cows charged the hunters. Okay, and Mr. Botha fired a shot from his rifle, but he was caught by surprise by a 4th cow that stormed them from the side. Now, one of the hunters shot the elephant after she lifted Botha with her trunk, and the elephant then collapsed on top of him. So he is a hunter, and so he has sort of pioneered, they say, this European-style Monteria hunts, which are basically they use large packs of dogs to drive deer and boar towards the hunters, and then they hunt them. Now, he specializes in hunting leopards, and basically he's known to go to America and find wealthy people to then bring over to Zimbabwe to shoot these big game. I don't know what they were looking for with this particular hunt, but they were not trying to shoot the elephants. They came across them, then the elephants, they were trying to breed, and I think there was a pregnant one in the mix. And so they became very agitated. Elephants are known to be very protective and to stampede, obviously, and that was what happened. And so it's very unfortunate that he passed away. But again, this is just another example of these animals in the wilds that are gonna have these animal instincts, and you have to have caution around them.
I wonder, I wonder what the people within the community are thinking, because I imagine it's something like, well, this is dangerous. And I kind of prefer this kind of hunting where you put yourself in harm's way if you gotta do it, and then you suffer the consequences if the consequences befall you. Because I always think of like hunting like birds and how crappy that seems to me, or like hunting like boar or something where you can stand 1,000 yards away from, or
or you're
100.
in a car or something.
Yeah, or you're driving down, or you're shooting it from a helicopter.
Sarah Palin did
like
that.
Sarah Palin hunting wolves or whatever. Like that's the kind of stuff that it doesn't seem as fair. It's like it seems actually like a more fair game than otherwise.
Yeah, I'm gonna be harsher. So I'm not a hunter. I know hunters, and God bless, and I get it. And like there's plenty of deer in America. You're not, and it's part of nature too, because we're hunters, and that's how we collect. And then the hunters I know, they eat it. They eat the deer,
same.
right? So, but this is part of the game. And so if you're brag about how you're a tough guy hunter your whole life, and you get crushed by an elephant, well, okay, in some ways it retroactively made your bragging worth it, right? Like, hey, it turns out you really were in danger. And then so, like, it's easy for us to use our weapons to kill these animals. Super easy. So one time when you get caught, hey, okay, all right, apparently there was some danger in there. So God bless. I mean, the elephants never had a chance, and he did shoot them. And so, I don't know, I'm not that broken up by it. So does that make me a bad guy?
The 2 elephants that were shot.
Just like doing the other elephant
crap for
thing.
that, but it's like they're just doing their thing. They're trying to breed. You know what I mean? They're trying to get it on.
Yeah, how would you like it if you were in the middle of breeding and some bitch breaks into your house
and
goes, I'm a
shooting.
houndsman, that's okay.
And then you got shot. Like you're like, get out of here, and then they just start shooting.
Look, I understand that like there's like the hunter-gatherer in it, and I get that aspect of it. And if you are like hunting to eat, I can sort of rationalize it. But if this guy's hunting leopard, he's not eating leopards. He's putting, he was putting them in his house. It's just like,
oh, dude.
It's
growing up, I knew this family, and their house was terrifying. They lived on like this hill, and the dad made like transistors or something, and had so much money, and they would spend it going on safari. And there were these terrifying photos of like the mom with a dead baboon, and she draped the arm around her. And then in their house, they brought back the trophies, and you'd walk down this hallway, and it would be like crocodile and like an elephant skull, and you just think to yourself like, this is the set. Like at night when you have to go get a drink of water in this house, it must be like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, did anybody come up to you and go, "Get out now"?
Yes, exactly. It felt like that. I don't get the instinct. I at least get like people for whom the hunt is like a challenge, and it takes a lot of patience and
do like a Rubik's Cube. I'm sorry, like if you need a challenge and patience, do a Rubik's Cube. Don't go shoot like these beautiful, majestic creatures.
I like fishing and releasing the fish, because I feel like I gave it a really great story.
But then it has like a.
That's also from Finding Dory.
Like it's gonna go like, I mean, maybe it was like living a bad life, and it was like something happened. I was pulled up into this weird bright area. I couldn't breathe, and I looked at this giant creature, and it let me go. I'm gonna spend more time with my kids now.
That's how fish think, right?
That's how fish think.
They probably think we're aliens. Okay, now look, last thing on this is, well, maybe a couple things. So one is that there's a range of hunters, right? Again, I knew another guy that was from Texas that used to hunt rabbits because they were dirt poor and that's what they would eat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's on one side. The other side is the Trumps. No, that's, to be fair, not even the Trumps. The opposite end of the spectrum. And I, of course, am referring to the kids, Eric and Donald Jr., who go and cut off different body parts of animals and brag about it. But no, it's the poachers, so that go and kill the rhinos, et cetera, to saw off their tusks, and that is the worst of the worst. And the people who pay for that tusk, thinking that it's going to make their penis larger, you are part of the worst of the worst.
Because it doesn't work. That's what's so frustrating about it. You're guaranteed that it will, and it just doesn't.
I think there needs to be a change in the way that we talk about it, because it's still called a trophy. And even like when we're talking about it, we're talking about these animals that they bring home as trophies. But if you talk like a rotting carcass, like people might not be as like excited to do it. Like I framed a rotting carcass.
Right, like an expert who knows exactly how to put you in a position to kill this animal, takes you to that position and you kill the animal. That's like the trophy that those people probably complain about that everyone gets at the AYSO. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and look, finally, if you're going to hunt leopards or wolves or something along, not something you're gonna eat, right? But you're doing it for games, so you could win a trophy, et cetera. You at least have the decency to do it with bows and arrows, knives, et cetera. I mean, shooting it from a distance with a like a sniper with a rifle, what is that? That's fun. That's fair. That's not fair, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, you have nothing to brag about. Now you go kill a cheetah with your bare hands.
Yeah.
Well, hey, brother, you got me on that one. Nice work. Okay.
Hand-to-hand combat. That's how hunting should be.
Right.
Paw to hand.
So and look, last thing is that this guy, he's got a family. So of course I feel bad for his family and stuff. And look, you can actually argue that he was a hunter to be more respected, because apparently he was endangering his life, right? And that wound up costing him his life because he was more of a sportsman and taking more risks than other people sitting miles away shooting at the animals, right? So if that's any solace to you guys, then credit to him on that. But you can't say that you want credit for being a great hunter and then say like it's an outrage that a hunter would ever die. You can't have it both ways, especially if you're called a houndsman. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. During his father's funeral this weekend, Roger Ailes' son, Zachary, pledged his revenge on anyone who betrayed the former Fox News chairman and CEO. Presumably, this means that any woman who claimed sexual harassment against Ailes. Now, during the funeral, he said that his father considered how much certain people hated him as a measure of success, which is interesting. And then he said that he was going to fight to clear his father's name after a series of sexual harassment allegations, saying that I want all the people who betrayed my father to know that I'm coming after them and hell is coming with me. So obviously, the apple does not fall far from the tree there, and this is unfortunate because I think a lot of the times when these people come out for sexual harassment claims and they're from however many years ago, or people wonder why people don't give their names or whatever. Like, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you say? This is why, because now this billionaire little twerp is saying that all hell is coming for you because you came forward and said that this abuse happened to you, and it's just awful.
I get what you're saying. This kid's 17. That's the thing that I had all those thoughts, and I'm like, how old is this kid? And I'm like, ooh, 17.
It doesn't matter. At 17, you know right from wrong.
Dude, my dad died when I was 18, and it was sucky. And I turned on like all my friends for a couple of months, and I had to speak at like my father's funeral, and I don't remember what the fuck I said. Like I just started like reciting memories and just like crying, and so I get it. I hope that I understand that your dad probably at this point in your life, your dad's a superhero. Like your dad created Fox News and his whole thing was to get people mad at him. And he's probably proud that all these bad people were vilifying his good father. And at this point, like I'm willing to carve out a window of time for this guy to hopefully go take some time off, get away from it, be angry, go through all your stages of grief. But if afterwards you're still going after people who, as you say, like had to go through like a really crappy situation, and guess what? They didn't know it was gonna kill your father. They didn't know that. I mean, yeah, they were speaking up for all the reasons you do. If after a while this kid's still singing this tune, then we have a different conversation, in my opinion.
Well, I'm between you guys, both literally and metaphorically. And so, on the one hand, I'm with Brett that 17-year-old kids who just lost their dads are gonna be pissed. And they don't have the full context. What would you believe? A bunch of people you don't know your dad, right? So, and I knew somebody, a really good friend of mine who lost their dad just around that age, and full of rage, and it wasn't even an Ailes type of situation where there's a lot of people who hate him, and then you feel like you're besieged and etc. Right? On the other hand, if after you take time to grieve and all that stuff, he then uses now Ailes wasn't a billionaire, but had plenty of money. He uses tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to actually bring hell with him. Like if he was a kid, his dad died, he watched Tombstone and he says this, that's okay, I get it, right? But if he actually used the money to go after the people who had sued him for sexual harassment or made those charges, then I'm gonna flip over to Hannah's side 1,000,000,000%.
Yeah, but I think even the way that we're like starting to talk about this is still sort of putting these women in a really bad situation, even saying like victim shaming, the way that we're talking about Roger Ailes' death, saying that all these allegations against him is what like killed him. No, like if somebody sexually abuses you, you should come forward. And we have this climate right now where women don't feel like, women and men don't feel like they can because they're gonna be shamed, or they're gonna be told that they're lying, or they're gonna be told that all hell is gonna break loose, or that they're killing somebody because they caused them so much stress after causing, after these claims of harassment. And that's not the kind of climate that we want to be in. So like this is like, I feel for this kid. I have seen death up very close, and I know how much it can fill you with rage and how you want to like get revenge. But at the same time, you're 17 years old and you can't be like continuing and perpetuating this sort of cycle against women who come forward.
And I hope that there's someone around him right now saying those exact words, because that's a really great message. I believe that, as I said, like these women came forward for good reasons, and I don't think they're lying, and I think there is no place for that kind of behavior in the workplace to do that to the women that Roger Ailes allegedly victimized, who I'm willing to believe he actually did all that stuff. I hope there's someone around this kid saying, listen, those women came forward, we'll let that bear out. In the meantime, like let's get you back on normal footing, because he is a kid at 17 who just lost his dad. And while he might well be like a total twerp, and someone with that much money is likely to be a total twerp, but like I want to give him like a couple months to go take part of that $40 million exit package that you're inheriting, and just like take a vacation and just kind of deal with it.
Yeah. So last thing on it is, again, on one hand, the other hand, he didn't say the women, right? If he means like his dad's political enemies like us, then have at it, Hoss, right? We're adults, we're grown-ups. You wanna waste your money, enjoy, right? But if you do mean the women, well, then again, I hope that couple of months helps you to cool down, etc. Because your dad did do it. So look, on the day that Roger Ailes died, I gave Roger Ailes a lot of crap because that's exactly what he deserved. Dying didn't magically make him a good person. He was a terrible person when he was alive. He was a terrible person the day after he died. Now, some people justifiably said, hey, but he's got a family who cares about him. Okay, but we're talking about the record here. Like, I need everybody to know why he was a bad guy and why we shouldn't make those same mistakes and go down that same direction again. And they say, no, today's not the right day. What, am I supposed to randomly talk about it 2.5 weeks later? What a preposterous thing to say. Should I do a segment on Antonin Scalia and what a bad guy he was like a year later after he died? No, you talk about the guy when he died. So, and if you know the details of what he did to those women, it is it's maddening. It's so outrageous. He would literally take out his penis and chase them around the room. Okay.
Brett, I was reading this story earlier and I was going into some of the allegations and Brett heard me like audibly like show my disgust. And Brett was like, "Hey, you okay there?" He like thought I was gonna puke because I was reading through some of their stories. And so yeah, you're right. Like it is so disturbing. And while I agree with you, like you have to represent the person, and regardless of whether they're dead or alive, you have to be able to like give a fair representation. And unfortunately for Roger Ailes and unfortunately for his son, his accurate representation is not a pretty one.
Yeah, and not only do that to all those women, and I think the worse than even the sexual, I don't know if you can get worse than sexual assault, was that he said to them, I will ruin your career if you don't sleep with me. And if you do, I'll make your career. And he followed through on that threat. That is a really bad dude. Okay, let alone the bigotry that he poured into this country, the hatred that he poured in through his propaganda on Fox News and when he worked for Nixon, Reagan, etc. So if you're outraged that I'm saying that, have at it, Hoss, okay? So leave the women alone. They came after your dad because they were finally standing up for themselves, okay? But if after a couple months you're still mad and you say, how dare they say that? And here, we're being true to what we said on day one. For his family, that's their business. And I get why they're angry. Brett and I just said it, right? And I get if I was 17 years old, I might have the same exact reaction as him, right? But if after a couple of months you're still mad and you think this is not good enough and you want to then strike back for your dad and join his team, then come and get some, okay? But for now, cool it with the talk about going after the women. Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and give you more stories, including a Trump backer. Huh, interesting. Boy.
Yeah. Boy is right.
When we come back. Here's how we prove we're too strong. We're up for a shorty again. Let's crush the competition. We're actually up for 2 awards. Best News and Media, of course, and Best Overall YouTube Presence. Ooh, PewDiePie, we're coming for you. Okay, I don't know if he's nominated. Anyway, let's go win it. It'll annoy our competition. Those guys go, oh yeah, no, but we're bigger or something. I mean, we don't have the numbers, but we can maybe. Well, how come we win the shorties, the streamies, and the webbies every year? By the way, it's not because of us, it's because of you guys. You're too strong. Let's go crush them. How you vote, you go into the description box below. You've got all the links there. We also made it tinyurl.com/TYTShorty2017. You could bother typing that in if you don't want to go to the links below and just click it. And you know what? You can vote every single day. So you can't vote more than twice a day. I don't want any voter fraud, okay? But you can vote every day. Let's go win those 2 shorties. Best Overall YouTube Presence, Washington. Go.
Today is truly a historic day with the Supreme Court decision that makes same-sex marriage legal nationwide.
So this is one of those days in American history. It doesn't come along that often, where we have expanded the circle of liberty.
Look, all we try to do on this show, okay, is to give you perspectives, right? So you can get a better understanding.
We need to change our mentality and understand why these people are trying to leave their own countries and everything that they've known, everything that they've built.
Yeah.
It's not to come here and harm you.
anytime you force someone like they did in Arizona to carry their paperwork, it's to remind them every day that they do not belong in your society.
Now that is the sound of fascism beginning here in America.
Doesn't that scare you? Don't you see history repeating itself? That xenophobia and faux populism to get people worked up to attack outsiders.
That is violent rhetoric, and your violent rhetoric translates to violent actions. If you don't get that, well, you're either in denial or you know it's true and you just don't want to admit it.
What's the message we're sending to the rest of the world? I mean, give us your poor, you're tired, and we will greatly mistreat them under horrible conditions where some of them will die. That's not what the Statue of Liberty says.
If you asked me to come up with something insulting to Latinos, I couldn't have done anything like this. I wouldn't have thought to insult their grandkids.
2/3 of the people shot when they're unarmed were blacks and Latinos. That means they were wrong. They're like, who cares? Shoot them, shoot them, shoot them, shoot them.
Look, my dad was born in Syria. My dad could have stayed in Syria and he could have been a victim of all this, right? And the thought of the United States saying no to Syrian victims, I don't know, it makes me incredibly emotional and incredibly angry because I think it goes against what this country's about.
The fighters, the warriors, the ones who go the extra mile, in this case literally, to provide for their family and to look for that American dream. And they shouldn't be forced to live in an American nightmare. All right, back on the Young Turks. Let me read some quick tweets for you guys. Jeff Anderson writes about both the sea lion and the elephant story. Here's the thing about animals, they're innocent. Agreed.
Animals are innocent.
Woke Bay writes in, that man that saved the little girl from the sea lion needs to jump in and save America from our grabby animal.
That was good.
Kicking It writes, an eye for an eye. Why don't we stop hunting innocent animals? I have no sympathy for them. Damn. Stagger Lee says, never interrupt an elephant orgy. Well, yeah, now, lesson learned. Okay.
Yeah. Good reference, Stagger Lee.
Far Left writes, since sounds like Zachary Ailes is going all Green Goblin on his perceived enemies. So that is a funny reference. Let's hope he doesn't though. And our members of the day are Charles Cook and Vivian Chen. Members to the Young Turks make this show possible. And then we're gonna give you guys a good post game here with Hannah and Brett. It'll be fun as usual. Brett will regale us with more sea lion stories. I feel like Brett can establish a personal connection to almost any story.
It's true, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's, if you want to be a member, tytnetwork.com/join. Now, we have breaking news for you guys, and it is tragic news. An explosion at Ariana Grande concert just happened. It's in Manchester, England, that this explosion happened. Apparently there were deaths involved, and we'll try to give you as much context as we can as it just happened while we're doing the show live.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of details out yet. It was at the Manchester Arena. It was immediately following her concert. Apparently, some of the concert goers heard 2 loud bangs near the ticket area, and then they just sort of described seeing chaos. People dropping their phones, people dropping their belongings, running. Some people claim that they saw blood. We're not sure if some of these claims are true yet. They're saying that it might have been confetti or something like that. But there are unfortunately a number of confirmed fatalities, a lot of people injured, and many people sort of coming and talking to the police about some of the things that they saw, and people who live in the area are being warned to stay away from the area. There's video out now you can look up of some of the chaos that was happening at the scene, but as I mentioned before, we don't have a lot of the details yet. We just heard about this tragic event while we were on the air.
Yeah, and last May in Manchester, they canceled a big soccer game because there were reports of heightened security threats, heightened terrorist threats, but that had to do with the new IRA, the new Irish Republican Army, and what they found was a fake bomb. There's no reports yet as to whether that's attached to this kind of incident, but this area has been a target, and large, high-profile sporting arenas in Manchester have been targets of terrorist threats before, but there's no confirmation as to what exactly happened.
And Europe has been targeted before, obviously, in acts of terrorism, and including at other large sporting events. Now, this is a concert, obviously, and in Paris, we had an attack pretty close to their elections. There's an election 2.5 weeks from now in the UK. We of course have no idea if it's related to that, but it's a normal question that you ask in a situation like this, given that something very similar happened in Paris just a little while ago. Yeah. And it's important to note that Ariana Grande's record label says that the singer is okay. So there were reported fatalities, but Ariana Grande is not among them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just devastating that this is something that you have to work out, like deal with and expect almost from some of these sorts of big crowd events.
You know, now look, security's getting tighter and tighter. So I was at YouTube Brandcast, which is the big thing that YouTube puts together for advertisers, et cetera. But because there was that YouTube star that was killed was just last year. Yeah, and so now there's much more security all around us, and it's maddening because they attack places where there's a lot of people. So it drives us apart, and it literally terrorizes us, no matter who did it, right? And that's what they're trying to do. So if it's airplanes, it's trains, it's large sporting or singing events, et cetera, concerts, they're trying to get us to not come together, like almost literally.
And I think this one's like probably especially egregious. I think we'll realize as more details come out, because this is Ariana Grande, and she is, if her audience is mainly teens, and so I think this is going to be a particularly devastating one.
Yep. Okay, let's do one more story here in this hour.
Okay. During Trump's inauguration weekend, millionaire John Joseph Boswell sexually abused the hotel maids in his DC Mayflower hotel, and now he has to pay a whopping $50 fine.
Wow.
So this is a picture of John Joseph Boswell, and he is the chief executive of Independent Stave Company, the world's largest wine and whiskey barrel manufacturer. He lives in a 14,000 square foot, $7 million mansion in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, 20 miles from Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Now, he has contributed more than $120,000 to Republican candidates and conservative groups over the past 25 years. As I mentioned at the start of the video, he was in DC for Trump's inauguration. But the victim of his crime is a maid who we will not be naming in this video. She's an African immigrant who makes about $20 an hour, and she commutes into the city to do her job. And according to the police report, as she made his bed, he approached from behind and began rubbing her buttocks. He said, "This is very nice stuff. I like that." Then when another maid emerged from the bathroom, Boswell immediately moved And the first maid rushed out of the room, shaking, and told her coworker that she had to clean it herself. Now, as the second maid attempted to make the bed, Boswell approached her too and placed his hand on the top of her shoulder until she ordered him to sit down. Now, he has pleaded guilty to this, but then during an interview with the Washington Post, which I'm reading the story from, he actually maintained his innocence in the interview and says, "I patted her on her lower back. It was a friendly gesture."
Oh, God.
Now, he was sentenced to 10 days incarceration and 6 months probation, although the jail time was suspended. And during that 6 months probation, he went on vacation to the Bahamas. Judge Michael Ryan also ordered him to pay $50 into the Crime Victims Compensation Fund, which is 1/5 of the maximum penalty for the offense, because giving unwarranted and unwanted sexual grabbing is a Class C misdemeanor, and the biggest fine that you have to pay for that is about $500. So clearly this is an example of what happens when you are a rich white male.
So even if it was, so that's 1/5 of the maximum penalty. They say is 50. It depends on what it is. Sometimes some sources say it's like $100 is like their maximum because it's 10 days or less in certain crimes.
Right.
Either way, $50 to this guy, $100, $250 to him is the same amount of money statistically. The marginal difference as it relates to his overall income of, as reported here, $600,000 a month. Like, why not give him the maximum? And the idea behind punishments, as many people put out, is to kind of get to this guy to say, dude, don't do that again.
Yeah.
And there is literally no consequence. This is an inconsequential amount of money for him to pay. And if he's on probation, you hear about like your probation officer saying, don't go anywhere. If he's allowed to go to the Bahamas, I think a way to get through to this guy is to say, no, you can't go on vacation because that's not okay to do what you did.
Right, exactly. And it's inconsequential for him, but extremely consequential for this woman, especially the first maid who I guess the defense attorneys went to her apartment and were aggressively asking her questions. So then she moved, and apparently, according to the second maid that was involved in this situation, cries every time it's brought up. So this is clearly devastating for her. And apparently, I looked into this, it's actually very, very common in this industry. I think it's about over 50% of hotel maids say that they have been groped or had sexual advances made towards them while on the job. Wow. And so this is really a huge, huge issue that we need to address, and charging somebody $50 for touching somebody's butt while they're trying to do their job is not the way we're gonna do that.
Well, so that's sexual assault. So look, there's two parts of the story that's spanning. One is, the judge clearly felt some sort of sympathy for him, and there's two different, justice systems. And if you're rich and you're in this guy's situation, I mean, like Brett said, giving the maximum wouldn't make any difference. But saying I'm gonna give you 1/5 of the maximum is kind of rubbing in the victim's face. Like, I don't think what he did was a big deal. I'm gonna let him go to the Bahamas and I'm gonna make him pay you $50. And then the hypocrisy of these guys. I thought you didn't like immigrants. You apparently like this immigrant. Yes. A lot of times they say a lot of things where they don't like African Americans. Apparently you like this. And she was married with 3 young children back at home. What happened to your family values, you scumbag? And you gave $120,000 to Trump, a similar scumbag. So now we know what you're about. All right, quick break. We'll come back for more in a sec. All right, back on the Young Turks. Larry R. Porter already wrote in that quick break. Does the sex offender who assaulted the maid have to register as a sex offender? That's a good question. Yeah. If he was a young black male, almost certainly would have to. But as the rich guy that he is, I think that from the Bahamas, he's shouting, no, I don't have to. I was telling these guys during the break, but two other parts of the story that enraged me are him saying, well, I didn't really do it. No, you pled guilty, dick. That means you did. You're saying you did do it in the court of law. If you're committed perjury, then let's bring you back in and put more charges on you. Right? Yeah. And you don't get to say, anyone who says I patted her lower back means I grabbed her ass. Okay, that's so fucking obvious.
But even if that was like it, like don't touch her, like don't touch anybody.
Don't.
I mean, it's just, it is so. I know I'm gonna go on a tangent here, but I was reading some of the stories from these hotel workers who were talking about these experiences, and they say like the hotel policy is to close the door, right? Because if they leave it open while they're cleaning the room, then people can come in and they can be in danger. Or when they close the door, they're also put themselves in danger because oftentimes there's people in the room. They talk about people who will open their robes and try to make sexual advances. So either way, they're in these really, really dangerous situations, and it's not right. You don't get to touch somebody just because they're in your room or you think that they're lower than you or they're service industry. It is so messed up.
So did you say 50%?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's according to surveys. So my guess is that it's probably more because a lot of the times these sorts of things go underreported.
I mean, imagine all the rooms that you have to hit every day. There's gonna be, this one makes me sick in my skin crawl.
Yeah, and I of course didn't know that stat, but anytime like I'm in hotels a billion times throughout the year because of all the travel that I do. But and so sometimes you'll run into a situation where someone is still in the room cleaning when you come back from breakfast or something like that, right? I either leave or whatever, or if we're in the room at the same time and they're gonna finish up, I'm all the way at the other end of the room. You know why? Because in my gut, I know that shit like that happens and you don't wanna make them uncomfortable, right? So this guy on the other hand, how many fucking times did he do this? Do you see what I'm saying?
That's not his first rodeo,
Yeah, it's instead of thinking, hey, let me make sure they're comfortable and I'm nowhere near them, God knows what they're thinking, right? He thinks the exact opposite. Let me go grab their ass because I can.
It's so
and I've done this 100 times and gotten away with it.
What a pathetic instinct. Like, it's so pathetic to be like, this is where I need to assert my awesomeness and the disparity in our two situations.
Because you know why he did that? Because he knows that this woman isn't gonna come forward and isn't gonna talk about it because she's so fearful for losing her job, because they're in these situations where they're getting paid very low and they don't have like a lot of job security, and so he can exert his power in this way, and it's just like the most disgusting, you're right, it's the most disgusting exertion of power.
Yeah. All right, so unfortunately the next story doesn't get that much better.
Yeah. Two Detroit doctors and one of their wives are being charged for genital mutilation in federal court after apparently doing FGM on two 7-year-old girls, and their lawyers are claiming that is their religious right to do so. Now, the defendants are part of a religious and cultural community called Dawoodi Bohra, an Islamic sect based in India, which is accused of practicing FGM. Now, one of the doctors is alleged to have carried out the practice on young children for 12 years. The other doctor is accused of letting the first doctor use his clinic to carry out the procedure, while his wife is accused of holding the hands of at least 2 victims during the cutting procedures to comfort them. Now, their defense lawyers are planning this interesting argument, like I mentioned, claiming that the doctors did not actually cut the girls, just scraped their genitalia, and argue the defendants are being persecuted by practicing their religion. Now, according to legal experts, the defense can show that the procedure was, if the defense can show that the procedure was just a nick and caused no harm, the defendants could be acquitted on religious grounds. But unfortunately, according to court documents, the girls said they were told they were going to Michigan for a special girls trip. One of the girls said that after the procedure, she could barely walk and that she felt pain all the way down to her ankle. The document said the girls had scarring and abnormalities on their clitorises and labia minora. Like, I'm on the verge of tears because this is so wrong and inhumane, and I want our country to have religious freedom, but these sorts of acts against humanity and human rights need to trump that, and this is not fair to do to 7-year-old girls in America. And to tell, I understand again, if it's your religion, practice however you want, but don't do these sorts of awful, horrendous acts that have lasting medical side effects, and is just this exertion of power on women and a way to control female sexuality. I mean, it's devastating.
Yeah, no, there's a very clear distinction, which is if you want to practice your religion. Now, I'm not religious. I don't believe in any of the religions. So I don't agree with you, but God bless your heart. That's why I love America. It's free exercise of religion is guaranteed to us by the Constitution. So for example, if you're Muslim and you don't want to draw the Prophet Muhammad, go in a corner and don't draw him to your heart's content, okay? If you want to privately not eat shellfish, you don't want to eat shrimp, you think red lobster is made of the devil, have at it, Hoss. Don't do that, don't eat bacon, could be halal, kosher, whatever, go nuts, right? But your rights end when you harm another person. That is, you don't have the freedom of religion to harm other people. That's not how it works. So these are all balancing acts when it comes to our rights. So when it affects someone else and it harms them, it stops being a right of yours. That is something you are doing to another human being. So this is not remotely a close case. So you want to bring your culture here, wherever you're from, and you want to practice it. That's what makes America great. We're a melting pot. We might not agree on all those different things. I don't agree with headscarves, but I love that the country allows you to wear headscarves, right? But the minute you take that scalpel to that poor 7-year-old girl, you're going to jail, and I hope you go to jail for a long time. Don't tell me it's your culture or your religion, because I don't care. That the laws apply here. American laws apply here that we all agreed to as a community. And if you don't want to abide by those laws, there's a thing called prison where you belong.
Yeah, it's reading up on this practice. There's just such variation in it. There's a Martha Jones article where an American woman said this happened on me, and they took what is called, they call it a pinch of skin, which they compare to like male circumcision, where it doesn't materially affect the any kind of reproductive organs. It's just a rite where it's like, here we go, and then they give it to the parents, and then they go bury it. That's part of the rite. The thing is, like, across the spectrum of this religious sect, it goes down to in India and in America, there are ants. It's just the ant is like, okay, so here's how I think it happens. And they take a razor blade and they heat it over the stove, and then they mutilate. And there's no governing idea. There's conflict over why they do it when they ask each other. Some are saying the thing that a lot of FGM is based around is they don't want the girls to be sexually promiscuous. So we're going to remove the joy of sex from them. And that is like on its face terrible. And then others say, well, there's certain medical aspects that are beneficial when no one believes that to be true.
Yeah, there are actually awful medical side effects, including trouble with menstruation, trouble having children later in life, and so some other things like that. But yeah, Brett, I mean, that's the problem is especially when these things happen in America, it's really hard for people to explain why. And some of the explanations that I was able to find in researching this was like they're trying to keep some of their culture. And the other one is that they want to, like when they take away some of the sexual pleasure that women have. And so when they go to their husband, they're guaranteed to be a virgin. And it is, I mean,
what a big benefit. Okay, so look, so I'm a cultural warrior, and so the Bill O'Reilly warned you about me when he said these secular humanists would, want to change our culture, and I do. I want to change some parts of a lot of different cultures, and I'm proud of that. I don't think that. So if you I know some liberals don't agree with that. They're like, oh, we have to respect everybody's cultures. Apparently conservatives think you have to keep culture completely the same no matter how horrific it's been, right? So here's a part of our culture in America that I despise, and I'm super glad we changed it. Slavery, that was part of our culture. It was horrific, and we changed it, thank God. That part of our culture sucked. It was horrible. It was horrific to its core. So some parts of different cultures are terrible. In Central Asia, in some countries, they still kidnap their brides. And it's not fun and games. She doesn't agree. They kidnap her and they rape her, and then her parents come over and convince her to marry her rapist. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. It happens some of the time, and they go, yeah, it's my culture. In the old days, we would have Central Asian hordes, and we would, we were nomadic, and we would go from yurt to yurt, and then we would find women and rape them and keep them. That's my culture. Okay, well, that part of your culture sucks, and it infringes on other people's rights. Now, if your country hasn't changed with the times, then I think that's terrible, and I feel terrible for the women who live there. I feel terrible for the men who were taught that kind of brutality that live there, okay? But we don't live there. We live here in America where we have laws. You touch another person like that and your terrible excuses, no, I was just scraping her genitalia. No. Maximum punishment, okay? I don't give a damn about your stupid cultural defense. Oh, my culture is horrific. We mutilate women because we don't think they should have any joy at all in their sex lives, and sex is for men to have, and then they are objects for us. Well, your culture is fucking miserable. It's disgusting, and I vote no. And luckily, as a whole society here in America, we voted no. You don't get to cut young girls' clitorises. If you do, there isn't a prison sentence that could be long enough. So if you don't like it, now I'm gonna sound really jingoistic here, but I am a legal immigrant. I immigrated to this country, so don't take it the wrong way. If you don't like it and you wanna practice your barbaric culture, then get the fuck out because you don't belong here. Was that clear enough?
That was clear. I get you.
Okay.
Ugh. What about circumcision? What about circumcision? They do it to kids, like newborns. And there are certain parts of the Jewish religion where the mohel cuts the tip of the penis off and then sucks the blood.
Let's save that for the postgame.
Okay.
Okay, so for those of you, if you're longtime members, you've heard this before. But for those of you who haven't, I will quickly retell the story of how I got circumcised at the age of 6.
Good for you.
And I totally remember it, okay? And so we could talk about the mohel tradition. We could talk about the Muslim tradition of doing it later in life. Okay, so that'll be in the post game. tytnetwork.com/join. Okay, let's see if we can do one more story.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Last month, the Department of Labor alleged significant pay disparity between male and female employees at Google. Now it looks like Google tried to actually block some of the media coverage of their gender discrimination case and prevent free speech in the process. Now, following a private meeting with the judge about the Guardian's reporting, so hold on one second, I'm gonna back up real quick and give you guys the case in case you don't remember it from some of our reporting here. Basically what happened is the Department of Labor asked for salary history data from Google. And Google was like, nah, no thank you, okay? And so the Department of Labor said, hey, you can't really do that because you have to follow Equal Pay Act and some of the equal pay laws that the government enforces because they are a government contractor. So they can get audited and they have to provide that information to the Department of Labor. So Google said that they didn't want to, and then with the history data that the Department of Labor did have, they found these significant pay gaps, okay, between male and female employees. Now, the Guardian reported this, like I mentioned in that graphic, the Guardian reported that there was this pay disparity and people kind of ran with it, and Google still said, no, there's no gap here. In fact, on Equal Pay Day, they said we have no pay discrimination. We're really proud of that. And the Department of Labor said, nah, you do. Also, hand us the data that you have to hand to us. And Google is still refusing to do that. So they are going to court for that. So following a private meeting with the judge about the Guardian's reporting on this disparity, Google's attorney requested that the proceeding be closed to the media before continuing, but a Department of Labor attorney objected and the judge sided with the government. Now, during the hearing, Google released a statement to the Guardian saying it vehemently disagreed with the unfounded allegations and raised questions about the Department of Labor's data and methodology. Every year we do a comprehensive and robust analysis of pay across genders, and we have found no gender pay gap. Now, Janet Harold, the regional solicitor for the DOL, told The Guardian by phone, the investigation is not complete, but at this point, the department has received compelling evidence of very significant discrimination against women in the most common positions at Google headquarters. Now, this was a big issue for Google, so they abruptly interrupted the testimony, called for a private meeting with the judge. The judge canceled the rest of the hearing, and they filed a new motion under the seal to dismiss the case based on these remarks that she said, saying we just have this significant evidence. Now, Google questioned whether her comments to The Guardian were unethical, urging the judge not to condone her conduct, citing a California trial publicity rule that says attorneys engaged in ongoing litigation should not make a public statement outside of court that would have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the proceeding. Now, the judge is saying that she did not make an ethical violation, and that this sort of comments to the press would not affect the outcome of the suit. Further, the DOL is saying that basically Google's being inauthentic and is being hypocritical by saying these things because they sort of promote transparency and made a comment to the press first. And so just the fact that she then addressed that comment, and now they're trying to shut down the entire case because of this, and saying that all of the data should be moot because of this is wrong. So.
Okay, let me try to resolve this,
yes.
Okay? I'll be the arbitrator.
Okay.
And I think that I'm in an interesting, unique position here where, because I run a business and at the same time, I don't want sex discrimination. So, okay, I think that I'm fair, if you will. We'll find out, right? So first on the press issue. In legal terms, what Google did opened the door. So if you open the door to that conversation and you do it publicly, they have a right to respond. And it's certainly not a big enough issue for you to try to throw a monkey wrench into the proceedings and not go forward. So that part is dismissed, we're done with it, okay? So when Google says, I don't want to release this information, they might have a reason why. So for example, if they release all their salaries publicly, that could be a real big issue for all the people who work at Google. And so if they do it, I agree that they should do it in a non-public way. But when they say, no, government, I don't want to give you any of the data to rebut your charges that I have a gender pay gap, well, then how do I prove that you're right? So you have no leg to stand on. You could say, hey, don't make it public, but you can't say I'm not gonna give you the info.
Right.
Because if I was the judge, I'd go, okay, you're not gonna give me the info, but they did, they presented some evidence, so you're guilty, we're done with it. Like, what do you mean you're not gonna give me the evidence? Then I rule against you, isn't that obvious, right? So, and if Google's claim later, if it turns out there is a gender pay gap, and we don't know, that's the whole point of these proceedings, is right, is if it turns out there is one, and they say, look, our founders make more money than other people, and they both happen to be guys, and that skews the average. Well, I think that's an interesting argument. If on the other hand, they were saying, okay, we hired editors here or programmers, right? And they're both coming out of college, so they're both at the same seniority level, but one's a dude and another's a woman, and so come on, of course we're gonna pay the dude 5% more, 15% more, you're gonna lose the case, right? And even if they don't say that, but the numbers prove it, you're gonna lose the case. But they might not. But they might. I mean, I would be honestly, and maybe I'm biased here in that we're partners with Google, and I should say that through our YouTube channel, etc. Right? I'd be shocked if Google was like, oh no, for same people at the same position, especially like coming out of college, that's the easiest way to determine, right? They pay men more. I'd be really surprised by that, but maybe they do. That's why you have these proceedings.
So it looks like so I did a Facebook video about this on the Young Turks Facebook when this information first came out, and it looks like when they compare for comparable positions that there was this significant disparity, and it was company-wide. So it accounts for some of those things like averaging and things like that. So I mean that's a significant problem, and I understand why Google obviously doesn't want this press about this because they are a liberal, big tech company, and there's already so much information about sort of sexist workplace culture and pay disparity specifically within the tech industry that they're probably trying to not have put onto them. So I understand why that. But at the same time, if there is this huge gap, a significant gap between the pay that you're paying your female and your male employees, like I understand not wanting the press, but also like address it.
Yeah, and then their mottos don't be evil. That's the Google thing. Don't be evil. And this seems pretty evil. It might not be, but the optics are not good when they're saying, all right, when Google tweets out, we have closed the pay gap 100%, and the Department of Labor says, okay, prove it. And Google's like, no, trust us. Like that seems pretty evil. That seems pretty terrible. I think there's so
their response to when they first said that was they showed how they provide, like make sure that they're doing equal pay, but it wasn't any sort of information or any statistics. It was just like, oh, this is like the process that we go through.
They have.
So again, it's like it's just not transparent enough to really bolster their argument here.
Buried in one of their like best practices websites is their equal pay and how they kind of hints at how they break it down, and they say kind of initially there's a 20.7% differential between how much women get paid and how much men get paid, and then they go on to say that there are non-gender variables that close that gap, which so essentially if you do some kind of regressive analysis or that's a statistical term, you'll find out that it is not as wide as you think. And they cite things like women are in jobs typically throughout America that are lower paying, which is itself a problem. And they're saying in this situation, we are going to kind of account for that and to see like if a woman is a teacher and teachers get lower pay and guys are engineers and engineers get higher pay, that accounts for it. And that's not Google's problem is kind of what they're saying. But then they go on to say that there's things like experience, unionization in regions. And then after they say they account for that, there's only an 8.4% gap.
But there's so many things that you can't account for when you're talking about different things like that. Let's say like you mentioned, some of the both founders are male. I don't know what their entire executive structure looks like, but my guess is that there's a large portion of it's that male. And so then you're talking about boys club politics and things like that can also play into it that you really can't parse out, that still play a role and will contribute to things that you can't always see and have an explanation for.
Yes, step up, come forward, stress the transparency, say here we go, let's exchange numbers and you tell me because we think we did our math right, but if the Department of Labor goes through it and says here's a problem, and then they both present their sides, and it seems like there is a way to better pay women so that it is actually equal to men, then let's just go do that. I don't understand. I mean, I get it. Like a lawyer working for Google would probably want to find every way to get this case thrown out. But the people represented by those lawyers should say, this is what our company stands for, and we should strive to make that known throughout the world because we're not ashamed of it.
It's actually a unique opportunity for a teachable moment. Like you can't say just trust us. That's a losing argument. So I understand all the numbers that you crunch, but we've got to actually see what the salaries are. Again, without names attached, et cetera. And these kind of proceedings actually, I think, can be helpful. And it's entirely possible that Google can come out and show, hey guys, we're not trying to systematically discriminate, and we pay the same amount for the people coming in at the same level. But here are the different factors. And by the way, they might both have 7 years of experience, but one experience is different than the other experience. So let's show you all the different. I know that they don't like it because it's going to cost them a lot of money and it might be terrible PR. But you should only really run from this case if you actually did it, right? If you're guilty, because if right now that's what the appearance is. To Brett's point about the optics, you're making everybody assume that about you. At least if you showed the numbers in court, not necessarily publicly again, and made your case, it could be an interesting moment that we could all learn from. And then maybe your case is effective, and people go, oh, you know what? At the end of the day, that wasn't fair. There is a disparity, but here's why. But we can't find out until you share the numbers.
And here's how we fixed it. I mean, that would be such an amazing, I think that would actually be a great PR move to say, yeah, this is a huge problem in the tech industry. We thought we weren't guilty of it, but it turns out like even unbeknownst to us, even not trying to, we were, and here are the ways that it happened, and here are the ways that we're gonna fix it. I mean, I think that's amazing PR.
Right, and I'd say like, what are Google's vulnerabilities? Like by and large, Google gives people access to information throughout the world, positive, positive, positive. In these female genital mutilation stories that we're talking about, there are people that through Google have found out that there are other people like them who have faced these kinds of situations. So that's great. That's what we like Google for. But what is the single thing that a lot of us point to Google and get scared about? It's privacy. And if their defense is that the questions brought about by the Department of Labor are overly broad and violates their workers' privacy, like, okay, buddy, now we're having a discussion about privacy with Google. You want to shut the reporters out of your hearings. Well, the stuff you know about those reporters and when they searched for edible panties on Amazon, like you know that kind of stuff about them. We're just trying to find out whether you live up to the Equal Pay Act because you're a government contractor. I think it's a fair question.
All right, we're way out of time. Guys.
No.
Okay, but like I said, more circumcision stories in the post game. They are interesting, somewhat disastrous stories if you've never heard them before. So that's at tytnetwork.com/join. Bye bye.